In a prior video, we talked about how to identify what servers or what resources are on our network. And we did that using multiple different tools in order to show how it could be done with those different tools, depending on what operating system and what tools are available to you. In this situation, or in this video, we're going to talk about, now that we know where those targets are or what those targets are, now we want to know what assets are on those targets. And by assets, I mean what services. Is there a web server? Is there a file server? Is there a name server or a user accounts or some other things that are on those systems? So we're going to start this off by assuming we are on the external network and we want to attack the internal network. Now we can call this internal network just company XYZ, or actually I think it's technically called in this lab, it's XYZ company.com. And we want to attack this company. So if you are unfamiliar or rusty on the way that things work as far as people publishing things to the internet, basically what happens, and this is really paraphrasing it really short, this firewall right here, all the magic happens on this firewall. What happens is on the front end firewall, the firewall that's presented to the internet, there are some rules that basically say, hey, if you're looking for port 80 or HTTP, go ahead and forward it on up to that guy. Or if you're looking for FTP, maybe forward it up to that guy. Or, if you're looking for email, then forward it to that guy or something along those lines. All the magic happens right here on this firewall. So what we can do from the outside of the organization, we don't necessarily know what systems those are going to, but what we can do from the outside of the organization is we can attack from our backtrack system here. We can attack that firewall. And what that's going to do is we can then see what ports are available inside the company through the firewall and what types of services might be running on them. From there, we can find out all kinds of things, such as what operating systems are running and how we can possibly attack those systems. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off on this backtrack system down here, backtrack number 5. And again, backtrack is the prior version of Kali. The tools I'm using are a little out of date, but the process is still exactly the same. So I've got my backtrack 5 system here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up a terminal. So what I want to do is I'm going to use the command telnet. Now, telnet, if you're familiar with the telnet protocol, is basically a clear text protocol. It allows my keyboard and my monitor to connect remotely to another computer. This is utilized a lot in systems that don't have monitors and keyboards, such as network equipment. There's no monitor, there's no keyboard directly attached to a router, so I use telnet or some similar protocol in order to connect into that remote device, and then I can manage it that way. Telnet is really interesting in the fact that it is clear text, meaning if I type the letter A on my computer, it ends up as the letter A on the end computer, and all through the wire from point A to point B, the letter A is transmitted. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's see, the address for that system is 216.1.1.1. I'm going to go ahead and telnet 216.1.1.1. Hit enter. Now, by default, telnet tries to run across port 23. So it's from my computer using port 23 or connecting to port 23 on the firewall and hopefully being forwarded in. Well, I can see now I've been connected. I currently don't have a login prompt, but at least I know that port 23 is being logged in is being forwarded through the firewall. There we go. It finally went through. So I'm connected. I've gotten a login prompt, and this is what's called, or this process that we're looking at right here would be called both a looking for available ports and banner grabbing. For instance, let's see. So we logged in and we see yes, we connected. So I confirmed that port 23 is actually being used. Awesome. I also have received this banner right here. Now the banner oftentimes describes what the service is. And we can see right here, it says, welcome to Microsoft Telnet service. That tells me whatever system that this firewall is forwarding that to, whatever's happening on that firewall, there is a Telnet server running. All right, so that tells me not only is a port open, but it tells me which service is running. If I want to attack that machine, I know that I can attack something, not just Telnet, but a Microsoft Telnet service. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and type in the wrong passwords here so that it will kick me out. It would have kicked me out eventually. Clear the screen here. And I want to do that telnet command again, but I want to connect to more than just telnet. Telnet by default connects to port 23. I want to see what other ports might be available. So there's a lot of common ports, such as 21, which is FTP, 23, which is telnet, 25, which is email. Let's see, 80, which is HTTP. There's a lot of other common ports that we would find on the internet. I'll leave it at just these 4 here because I really don't want to bore us all. Let's see. So Telnet, we did get some response back. So that was a Microsoft Telnet service. I think that's exactly what the command or what the banner said. I could run it again in order to make sure I know it exactly. But right now I want to connect to FTP. And I want to use Telnet again as a clear text way of just connecting to the port and seeing what comes back. Now, in order to do this, in order to tell Telnet connect to port 21 instead of port 23, what I do is after the IP address in my Telnet line here, I just type in the port number 21. So Telnet space IP address space port number. All right, so I hit enter. And I see it connected. And again, I get a banner message here saying Microsoft FTP service. Awesome. So I actually have an FTP server there. So let's add that to my banner message or to my notes. So that tells me, again, not only is somebody listening on FTP, but that's the type of FTP server it is. Let's see. I think I quit. There you go. Quit to get out of FTP. Oh, you know what? I missed another one. Another common port is 22, which is for SSH. SSH is like Telnet, except it's encrypted. Well, we just did 21. Let's do 22. See if we get a connection there. And it says trying, but it's not connecting. So this probably means that 22 SSH is not being forwarded by the firewall. Okay, so I've looked at the port. I looked at 21, it connected. I got information about it. I looked at 22, it's not connecting. Therefore, it's not available. Therefore, as an attacker, I can rule it out. I'm not even going to try to attack that system or that port, that service in the future because it's not there. It's not responding. Let's try the next one. Email. Control C to cancel the telnet, and then up arrow to get to the prior list. I'm going to change my 22 to 25. And here again, I get connected. This is really great. I get not just a server name, server and domain name. I may not have known who I was talking to previously. But I get Microsoft ESMTP mail service version 6.0.3790. That is amazing. Not only do I know now what service is running there, I also know what version of mail server is running on there. And this is really great from a hacker's point of view because now I can copy this and just go into Google, yummy little Google right here, and paste it in, and I can find out all types of information about that. Oh, looks like I had a typo there. About that server. Not only can I look for information about that server, I can also look for common vulnerabilities for that server. All right, so I've got lots of information here. That's awesome. Let's try one more. Let's see, quit. Yes. Let's try one more with port 80. Now this time it connected, but it's not giving me a banner message. And that's because not all services provide a banner message by default. However, with the HTTP protocol, we can request a banner message. Let's see. For this, I can go ahead and I can type in the commands head space and then HTTP /1.0. And so this is saying using the HTTP 1.0 protocol, get me the head information or header information from the server. Hit enter twice and it goes ahead and responds back, and it gives me lots of various information. Probably the thing we're looking for is this right here, server Microsoft IIS 6.0, and even better, it supports ASP.NET. So if I want to attack this web server, I know it's an IIS 6.0 web server. It's probably not going to take too much searching to be able to find out what operating system that is, and that it runs ASP.NET. So go back to our notes that we're creating here so we can attack later. And ASP.NET. Just put that extra note in there just so I know that that's an available option for it. So we can see here that this is a fairly easy process. I mean, really, we're just telnet accessing the port number and then seeing if something shows up. However, there's a lot of ports out there, and this could become fairly tedious fairly quickly. By the way, how many ports are there out there? Well, we just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ports, and that took about 12 minutes at this point. There are 65,534 ports, IP5, depending on how you do the math. 65,535 ports available for the system, and if I was doing this for each and every single little port, that would be really tiresome, and I would not want to attack this machine after that. It's not that exciting anymore. So we can actually automate this, and this is where some of the great hacking tools come in, such as Nmap. If we do Nmap against that IP address, then what it's going to do is it's going to scan that IP address. First off, it's going to ping it to see if it's actually there. Once it's done, it's going to go ahead and connect to the 1,000 most popularly used ports out there. It's not necessarily the first 1,000 ports, it is the 1,000 most popular ports. And then when it's done, it goes ahead and gives us the results back here. So for instance, right here we have IP port 110 of POP. That wasn't even on our list previously of systems or of ports to look for. It might have been on your list. It wasn't necessarily on mine. So Nmap is a great way to be able to do that. The second option is Zenmap. Now Zenmap is exactly the same as Nmap. It just gives us a GUI instead. So if we type in the IP address here, we can see it actually reports out the command here, and all it's doing, the only real difference at this point is these switches right here that it's throwing in. The fact that we said do an intent scan right here, it's adding those additional switches and therefore will give us additional information. What those switches do, there's a lot of information about them. Feel free to Google them or go through the Nmap man page to be able to see what they are. One of those switches, what it does is it helps fingerprint what those individual services are. So just as we saw that the Microsoft ESMTP server was version 6.0, there's fingerprinting capabilities built into Nmap and by extension Zenmap that help us identify specifically what version of the various applications are running. Looks like it ran. Okay, so on the left-hand side here we have a list of all of our servers, and we only scanned one server, so it wasn't really that big of a change there. If we look at the ports and hosts, it's a little bigger here. We can see, yes, port 21, 23, 25, 80, and 110 responded. We can see these services, and then we can also see descriptions about what protocols are running or what applications are running. For instance, in under POP3, MS Exchange 2003, POP3D version 6.5.69.44. So if I want to attack that POP protocol, I know exactly what version of the operating system or of application I want to attack. Probably the most interesting one to me is telnet. When you look at the version information, this actually tells me this is Windows XP telnet D. So not only is telnet running, but quite possibly telnet is running on Windows XP. That's probably extremely vulnerable, and I probably want to begin an attack or focus part of my attack on that service. So this is all information that Zenmap would have told me if I run this Nmap. If I run this same command, close Zenmap here. If I run the same command here in Nmap, it gives me the same information. It just doesn't give me the nice GUI to be able to view the information at that point. All right, there we go. Let's see if we scroll up here. Let's see, for instance, port 80, it sees Microsoft IIS HTTP version 6, 23, Microsoft Windows Telnet D, and so on. Get the same information from the command line as you do from Zenmap. Depending on who you are and what you're trying to make it do, Zenmap or Nmap is a personal preference. All right, so that's scanning external to the organization. We're not always outside the company though. Sometimes we get inside the company, whether it's just because we work there or we were able to physically connect into the network, or because we are good enough and we were able to get into the company and now we want to further hack from the inside of the organization. For that, I have the internal system. So that at this point, we started right there and we were trying to attack the firewall. So we were externally looking for assets in our environment. In this situation, what we're going to do is we're going to change our position. We're going to assume we are inside the company, and now we want to look throughout the entire organization as well. Now, previously we'd gone ahead and we'd looked to see what systems were in our environment. Let's assume we forgot that and we have to kind of start from scratch. So first thing we need to do is we need to find resources, which is these different systems that are on our network. After that, we want to find our assets. What services are running on each of those systems? And then, if possible, attack them when we're done. So let's do that. Let's jump onto that internal backtrack or Kali system. And let's go ahead and fire up terminal. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use a tool called Metasploit framework. Metasploit framework, basically what happened was there were a whole bunch of proof of concept attacks or possible attacks against other companies or against other computers. Excuse me. And somebody along the way said, hey, wouldn't it be great if there was like one tool that we could use to manage all of these? And that's how the Metasploit framework was created. Basically, they took all of these attacks, they put them all together into one giant catalog, and they put some consistency around how you run them. Basically, so yeah, there you go. So when you have all these attacks in your environment, for instance, right here we can see there's in this current version, which is old, there's 949 exploits, 502 auxiliary options, 152 posts, 251 payloads, 28 encoders, and 8 Nmaps. All kinds of different attacks and tools that we can use in our environment. This Metasploitable can be updated, so you can either download the newer updates from online, or I can also create my own exploits and auxiliary tools. Alright, so first thing I want to do, like I said, I want to see what resources are out there. I want to scan my network. Previously we could do that with Nmap, but we want to do it in Metasploit because it will work as a list of things that we can work with later. For this, I'm going to start off with just the simple command dbnmap, excuse me. 192.168.1.0/24, which is my internal network. DB, not DN. So many typos. There we go. So what this does, this basically just runs Nmap on all the computers on the internal network and will show me a brief listing of all the systems that are responding. So as you can see, it's going through each system. For instance, let's pause this right here. Here we can see it went to 192.168.1.175 and then scanned it for available services, or at least the 1,000 most popular services. So the reason why we want to do this in Metasploit as opposed to just plain in Nmap is it actually keeps track of all of these. So if I run the command hosts-u, it gives me a list of all of the hosts that have been scanned or have been identified in the environment. I can use this as I get into my attacks or further scans at a later point. So what I know now is basically I have IPs. I have IPs and MAC addresses, and I want to know more information about these, specifically what operating system are they? Who are they, and how can I attack them? So for that, I want to use, say, SMB, server messaging block. It's a protocol used by most Windows computers. So I want to search for SMB_version. Remember, search basically is a way for me to search through all the exploits, all the auxiliary tools, all the everythings that might be available for the system in Metasploit. And I have a tool here called SMB version. It is a scanner that helps me detect the version of SMB. Because the version is different on every single system that Microsoft releases, once I know what that version is, I can easily identify who they are or what operating systems they're running. Okay, so now I want to use this right here. So use auxiliary. Tab complete comes in really handy here. I typed in AU, I hit tab, it fills in auxiliary. SC, I hit tab, SMB, it's only 3 letters, I'll type it. And then SMB version. Right there. Okay, so the prompt changes, tells me I'm actually in the auxiliary scanner for SMB version. And if I do a show options, it will list all the options that are available for the SMB version scanner. And basically what I'm looking for here is anything where required is yes. For instance, threads is required and it has a setting. I can change that, but I don't have to. If I want to change it, I can, but it has a default setting, so I could just leave it at that. Current setting, or I'm sorry, our hosts, however, does not have anything listed, and it is required. So that means I have to put something into our hosts. Well, remember, we just got a list of hosts up above of 5 different hosts that we could possibly scan and target. Maybe we can use those. And basically we can. If we do the command hosts-R, that should have put those hosts right there. We see our hosts right there into the our hosts list. And if I do a show options at this point, we should see that the our hosts list is now populated. Look at that. In one tool, we scanned the environment and then we said, hey, everything you just scanned, now we want to start, or everything you just discovered, now we want to start scanning it. At this point, everything that is required in this option or for this scanner is set. So now we can just simply type run. And this will run against all of those systems, try to connect via SMB and see what, and it returned way quicker than I could possibly have talked there. Now if we do a hosts dash, what was it, dash U? There we go. Host dash U, we can now see, yes, okay, there's our IP and our MAC address, which we already knew. But we also see that this is a Microsoft Windows machine. And then which version? 2003. Not only that, oh, it kind of wrapped on me. Service Pack 0. So there's no service packs installed on this, and it is a server variety. Same thing for 192.168 1.100. It is a Windows 2003, again, SP0 of the server variety. 175 is XP, Windows XP, with 2 service packs, or with Service Pack 2 installed, and is the client variety. So we were very easily able to identify, once we had our list of targets, we were able to identify which operating systems were running on them. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and quit out of this. I'm going to get out of Metasploit at this point. It's a great tool. We can keep going in this. However, I'm a very visual person, and that's not quite visual enough for me at this point. In order to do it more visually, I'm going to run a command called Armitage. Armitage is very similar to what Zenmap is to Nmap. Armitage is a front end to Metasploit. So I ran Armitage. I clicked OK for the login prompts, and it says, "Hey, Metasploit isn't running. Do you want to run it?" Yes. It will then give me an error message saying that it can't connect to Java. I'm not going to do anything there. Basically, it's trying to log into Metasploit. Metasploit is not running yet. So we just wait. Metasploit will fire up in the background, and then Armitage will connect directly to it. And there we go. So we have down here in the bottom, we actually have Metasploit. This is the Metasploit framework. There's the nice little banner message. We could do the same kind of commands we were doing before, such as search SMB_version. And we'll see should see everything. It should be working. I'll chalk it up to the fact that I just turned it on. You'll notice that it did, in fact, automatically scan or identify all the systems that were running on my network, and the fact that they're Windows. So if I hover over these guys, it tells me, for instance, oh, there we go. My search finally showed up. Okay. So when I hover over 175, it tells me, hey, this is Windows XP SP2, Windows 2003 SP0, 2003 SP0, and 2008 without Hyper-V SP1. So very quickly, it showed me everything that was on my network. I typed some stuff down below just to show that the fact that is Metasploit, but I didn't actually have to do it. Just running Armitage would have popped that up for me. Now, if you're a more visual person than I am, Armitage is actually a great front end into Metasploit. Now remember, because it makes these things simple, everything we just did via the command line was done automatically for us. So the Nmap was done automatically. The SMB scan, SMB version scan was done automatically. That's great. That means I don't have to do it manually. But that's also bad because that means that it happened without my consent. That sounds bad. It did it without me asking. How's that? And the fact that it did it without me asking means it might have been more chatty than I wanted it to be. It might have sent out more information than I wanted to be sent out at that point, which means an IDS or some sort of a security scanner may have caught that traffic and alerted somebody to my presence. So while this is great, it did it automatically for me, gave me all that information without me even having to try. This maybe is not the best thing to do on day one. Like maybe when you've been in there in the environment for a while, maybe that will work, but maybe not on day one. Okay, so we've been talking about ways to be able to find information, be able to find assets, and be able to attack systems. Now, this all works inside these labs as well as out in the real world. Let's see, I don't think I have telnet on my system. I don't. I was going to show that I could actually telnet from my Windows machine out to the real world and be able to see what version of web servers people were running. It's exactly the same commands as what I did in the lab, just in the real world. There are also lots of places you can find online that tell you this. For instance, if I go to, there's a site called Netcraft. I think I want the site report. There we go. And I can go ahead and type in, let's choose my web server. Go ahead and type in a URL and enter. There we go. And what this does is it looks through its own database. It's gone through and it's scanned things before and it's looking at its database. And so here's information that if I'm a hacker, I don't even have to look. I don't have to do anything active. It's already in a database. It's already being recorded. I'm just looking it up. So it can actually tell me, how long has the site been around? What IP block is it on? What's the reverse DNS? What else does it tell me? Who's looking at me? Oh, it's running PHP. Maybe I have an attack against PHP. It's running JavaScript. Maybe I have an attack using JavaScript. WordPress. Ooh, maybe there's an attack against WordPress I can use. Maybe they haven't updated to the latest version of WordPress, and therefore I can attack them using an older WordPress attack. Maybe. So it can give me a lot of information about a website. At the same time, There is several other tools out there available online. There's one called Shodan. And in Shodan, you can type in either a website and it goes through. Does it not like my website? Guess it doesn't like my website. It wants an IP address. Let's try that. Copy? No, not go to. Copy. And Shodan is essentially a web-based version of Nmap. They've gone ahead, they've scanned my systems online. They know about who I am. They know about in theory, I'm in Boardman, wherever that is, probably Oregon. It tells me about all the various technologies that are on my system. Ooh, it tells me about the known vulnerabilities in my system. That's kind of interesting. And then it also lists what services are running. I've got ports 80, 443. It looks like it's running Apache. So there's a lot of services that I can do both actively in order to find out what assets or what targets are available for me. What assets are available for me to attack, both actively doing it myself as well as passively doing it by just looking online.